Ta-da.
We're almost there because it is the first Saturday of September. Hey, there we
What?
are. It is the first Saturday of September. We are the Fourth Wall, and we're joined with some special guests. I'm Greg, but because what we're doing this week, I'm actually going to disappear pretty early on. We're showcasing the work of Zara Lawler and Maya Ser, who created this brilliant project that was premiered at the National Flute Association's convention. Those of you who follow the Fourth Wall know that we love the NFA. And they created this wonderful work, just a cool video choreographed piece that Neil directed and I did the video editing for. And we're going to share parts of that and some of the process. So for right now, I'm going to disappear and get behind the scenes running tech, and I'm going to turn it over to everyone else. Neil, take it away.
Yeah, I'll take it away. Yes, we are joined today by the fabulous Zara Lawler, who has been a longtime collaborator. We first started working together back in 2000, in the year 2000. So if anyone has ever seen The Flute on Its Feet, I have a hand or at least a couple feet in that. And that is Zadie's amazing multi-decade project now. And then on the other hand, I got to work with Maya Sarar, someone I had never worked with before. This is our first time working together. And I was introduced to Maya through this project, through Zara for this project. So maybe I'll let you talk about how you two met and got started on this thing.
So hi everybody. Thanks so much for being here. And thanks to the Fourth Wall for hosting us. It's so fun to be part of your party. Um, so Maya and I actually met on a playground in our neighborhood. We both live in the same neighborhood in New York City and have kids who are actually not the same age but seem to like playing on the same playground. And so I had seen Maya and her daughter many times in the neighborhood before one time we finally introduced ourselves at the playground. And you know how these conversations go. Oh, is that your child? Oh, yeah, how old are they? Oh, yeah, mine. Oh, what school do they go to? Oh, great. Yeah, so, what do you do? Oh, I play the violin. Oh, I play the flute. Oh, do you play anywhere I would have heard of? Oh, well, and this is what I said. Oh, I do mostly weird stuff where I combine flute with movement or theater. And Maya said, I do mostly weird stuff where I combine violin with movement and theater. And the conversation went from there. And it was clear, really, honestly, at that time, like that A, we should have known each other for a long time, and B, we should eventually do a project together. So eventually, we got ourselves into a dance studio and had a play date, which Maya is going to tell you more about.
Yeah, after talking and sort of comparing notes that, we each had done our own separate, I guess you called it weird stuff, things with movement, we compared notes and we're like, oh yeah, we've been both doing this for over, oh, should I say, I don't know, over 20 years each.
They know by now.
So yeah, then but between the time where we started talking about we should do something together and then 2017 where Zadie went ahead and reserved some space at the Gibney, yeah, I guess some thoughts in the background started to kind of form, and it was for me in a way at the Gibney at this first play date where we literally didn't have any kind of preconceived notions as to how this is going to go, and ended up actually both by coincidence showing up in the exact same outfit and with the same haircut. For me, what happened at that play date was basically kind of realizing, just how symmetrical, in a way, our respective ways of playing our respective instruments is. And we basically just improvised the sound and, yeah, had no plan in terms of what kind of movement we were going to do. We just started to kind of play and watched, basically in the mirror. We made some adjustments and said, okay, you will lead this segment, I will lead that segment. But for each segment, again, that was sort of as much instruction as we gave each other, and took it from there. And as you will maybe notice, there's almost like a straight line going from that, or path going from that first play date to one of the movements, the saraband, which we'll take a quick look at later. So many things that are the choreography came together in a really organic fashion without really thinking that we were doing anything extra. And it just felt so natural, and it felt so natural from the first moment to be playing and dancing with Zara. So it was really kind of a magical moment for me. So yeah, I'm just so grateful, to have the chance to kind of keep expanding on these symmetries that we found.
Yeah, so we're going to show a clip here from that 2017 exploratory session in a dance studio. It's going to start with the sound that was recorded in the room, the improvised sounds with the improvised movement. And then you're going to hear some music from the Bach B minor suite superimposed over it, because part of our process of taking that archival video and having it inform what we were going to do or what the possibilities were for this project was to simply show the video and play a recording. We had a few different professional recordings at our fingertips to just like arbitrarily sometimes just like superimpose. And then eventually, of course, we had real recording with these two fine musicians. But yeah, it started out very open-ended. We don't know what we're going to do, but let's see what happens and see if there are any happy accidents when we combine this sound, this actual music with the movements that were improvised. So take it away. Here is our little exploratory thing. Beautiful, beautiful. As if we planned it. And it's always so much fun to watch those and just go like, oh, that was a moment that you found without any idea that you were creating a thing. And So yeah, then once we decided that certain kinds of movement, be they parallel or symmetrical, hence the name eventually that we chose for the title of this project, Symmetrical Lives, that came from us going, oh, this little 2 minutes of exploratory video, let's call it Symmetrical Lives, or this one is Giraffe Legs, and this one is Complementary Lives. We started to nickname the stuff that had been found. So now we're starting to develop a vocabulary, and then eventually going like, oh, okay, those moments really work well with this music. And then when we decided we wanted to, when we didn't have too much choice in the matter of making this into a film versus creating a live performance due to the pandemic, we invited locations into the creative process and tried to figure out what is the proper location for this music and this movement idea. So eventually, we happened upon this lovely location outside Amherst, Massachusetts, called Mount Pollux, where we filmed the Sarabande. And the choreography that we created for what you're about to see was greatly inspired by moments and qualities from the play dates. But just sort of eclectically lifting moments and then seeing if we can connect dots. So anyone else want to say anything about the Sarabande before we show that?
I do. What is so fun for me every time we go back and watch footage from the playdate, which was so long ago. I do remember, as Maya describes, us both magically showing up in the same outfits with the same haircut, and I do remember how magical it felt to be able to play and move together. But I don't really remember, like, the specifics of what we did, and then when we watch the video, it's so interesting, it's so interesting, the whole idea of capturing an improvisation, something that was really in the moment but was captured on video. And then when we were doing this process of it sort of getting to be a formalized choreography that we could repeat and repeatedly execute for performance, I remember that part of the process for me that was hard was I was like, but we have this video. What part of it are we, do we want that second from the video or that second from the video? And which part of the music is it going to go with? And what's really interesting to me now that the project is complete, looking back on those videos, I can see so much of how it manifests itself in the final product, which people will see momentarily in the Sarabande. But it was interesting that actually when we finally got to officially choreographing the Sarabande, it didn't feel like we were like, oh, that cool thing where Maya bent her back like that, let's make sure that gets in the Sarabande, and let's do it right here on bar 5, and yet there it is, and it looks a lot like that original playdate.
Hey, well, let's watch it. Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, the recipe for that piece was laid out. Like so many of the ingredients came out of those play dates. The experimentation with weight sharing and with creating symmetrical or parallel existences with yourselves, your bodies, your instruments, but also like the interlocking arms and experimenting with close proximity the way musicians don't normally do, violating the rules of social distancing, but also just, concert etiquette, trying to reimagine all that to again, like, approach music making from a more sort of visual choreographic mindset, and vice versa, because you also had to figure out how you were going to divide up the music between flute and violin. Perhaps another discussion point for the two of you. For those not familiar with this music, there's a history of people asking the question, is it a flute piece or is it a violin piece?
Or is it a flute-olin piece?
Flute-olin.
So that little inside joke there is that this piece was written by Bach, 300-ish years ago, and the way the music is written out, it has a solo flute line and a solo violin line and then an orchestra that accompanies. And the solo flute and solo violin, for about 80% of the piece, are in unison, meaning playing the same notes at exactly the same time. And so that's sort of where this question comes from. Is it a flute piece or is it a violin piece or is it something else? And so one of the things that we did, and of course many people when they play this piece, they make decisions about how they're going to play this music that's 300 years old, and they can't call Bach on the phone and say, did you really mean for the flute and the violin to play the same thing all the time? Or, could we take turns? Or, we can't have that phone conversation. So we had that conversation amongst ourselves and decided, especially because we were doing choreography, that it would be useful for the flute and the violin to sometimes take turns, for one of us to be a solo line while the other was not playing. Coincidentally or not coincidentally, Zoom as a rehearsal medium lends itself really beautifully to taking turns. I think we all know that Zoom does not lend itself well to everybody talking at the same time, whether we're saying the same words or different words.
No, it really does not. I mean,
no.
I'm trying to say the same thing, but it's awfully hard to know when to.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, like right now is the time to stop. So you see our point. So we had a really good time actually working out the rondo, which is another of the movements of this piece. Working out a voice sharing between Maya and me, between the flute and the violin, where we would take turns the entire time, except for one small segment of the music where Bach, in fact, wrote for the flute and the violin to be doing different things. But everywhere else, we decided we would take turns. And that lent itself to working out the choreography on Zoom, where, again, taking turns is optimized or optimal or something. Neil, do you want to talk a little bit?
I may add real quickly. Oh yeah, Zoom, simultaneous talking. Uh, uh, working on the voice sharing opened up this really rich conversation for me about how we kind of naturally, even sort of informed with by Baroque performance practice and so forth, how just our instruments, we sort of organically phrase differently, what we breathe when we change bows, things like that, how long we hold our notes, and even pitch. These things, it became a really rich discussion. And as we sort of came together in this process, I felt like, this whole other layer revealed itself that it seemed like, such a kind of almost like prompted by Bach, hey, violinists or like string players and wind players talk to each other, So I just wanted to add that layer of the actual just playing the instruments without the pre-choreography even.
Yeah, and that idea of let's have a conversation, like you two actually talk to each other, that kind of became the way this fell together. So what you're about to see is recorded video from a Zoom session where we actually invited some people to come hear us think about these ideas while we were in process. And this is a little thing that we just tried over Zoom. I was behind the controls of spotlighting videos back and forth between Maya and Zara, and we had made a bit of a plan for who was going to play which phrases. It wasn't terribly well practiced, but it was worth trying it out. And what you're about to see is that sort of live over Zoom experiment of going back and forth between their two respective apartments, playing respective phrase plans, and we actually found that it pointed the way forward in a pretty clear way. So definitely a good proof of concept here. So here is our Zoom performance of the Rondo. Ta-da! So yeah, then we had this idea of what if we actually film for the story of this film, the story of two musicians in their respective spaces, sharing the music, but still separate lives. So without any further ado, here is our final film version of the Rondo. Ta-da! Awesome.
Oh, I love that one. It makes me happy to watch. So one of the questions that often gets asked after a performance with people playing and moving at the same time is, how did you do that? How did you learn how to do that? And so their next little set of video clips will hopefully give a little bit of how do we do that. And so these are all from the Bourrée, which is another movement of Bach's B minor suite. It's a fast movement. It's got lots of notes and lots of energy. And we decided that partly because we were doing this for video and not necessarily for a live performance, that it would be fun for part of it to be a shadow play. So just shadows of us and our instruments rather than seeing us on screen, doing something that we might not be able to do easily on stage. And so creating the shadow play for this central part of the Bourrée was a really fun process. First, we did a lot of messing around, just seeing if we could make shadows work on screen. Once we knew that something could work, we had to decide on a pattern so that we could learn to do it while playing the specific music of the Bourrée rather than improvising something that had a lot of notes. So the first video that you're going to see is partway through that process, where we had decided that we needed to have some sort of thing where our instruments were pointing towards each other. And we actually just ended up working that pattern out. Neil used 2 pencils, one for me and the flute and one for Maya and the violin. And so we're going to just see Neil's initial pencil choreography for this first part of the second Bourrée.
I love the low-tech solutions in a high-tech process.
Exactly. And I don't know if you could see this, you'll notice it on the next one, that there's actually a dot on the paper that is showing what should be sort of the center of the screen, written in pencil. So So what we did is we did that a number of times, and as you could hear, I was singing my part, Maya was playing her part, and Neil was trying to settle exactly where in the music this should happen, and that should happen. But that was actually kind of not enough information for Maya and me. We actually needed to have a sense of the exact counts of where things happen, because of our job is unlike a dancer who just needs to fit their movement to the music, or unlike a musician who needs to fit the music to the counts. We have to do all of those things. We have to fit the music, we have the counts, the music has to fit to the counts, and then the movement has to fit the music. And we are doing all three of those skills at once. And so we needed to do a version where we counted instead of singing, or counted in addition to doing the singing. So that's the next version, again with pencils.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3.
And yes, it cracked us up in rehearsal as well.
Always.
So once we had a sense of exactly where in the music, exactly what was happening, we started to work on it with our instruments. But again, to get a sense of what it was going to look like in reality, in the reality of the film, we set ourselves up in front of a window where a shadow, where the sunlight was coming through, and we could watch our own shadows on the floor as we did the movement. And in fact, the place where we were, the shadow, luckily, was in the nice shape of about a rectangle that was approximately the right proportions for the video, and that you will see next.
5, 6, 7, 8. Roof, top, big X, extra big B. Maya, Zadie, both. Tilt, out, in, iron.
Actually, I told you about the wrong video, which you'll see the one with the shadows on the floor next.
Yeah, here we go. Angling in. Maya comes down. And push. And push. And back to neutral and angle. Other angle. Back to come out. Loop. Overlap. Ready-made. It's perfect as is, right?
Well, I think that was Bach calling us from 300 years ago to say, by the way, I want you to play all the notes all the time and stop messing around.
It's obvious who the soloist. I wrote it in the music.
I know, he had to use the old-fashioned phone to call from 300 years ago. Anyway, so as you can see, there are layers of this process that are just about the execution. And that despite what Maya said about the organicness of playing while moving, which does certainly feel organic, there is also this layer of codifying when and where what happens, and learning to execute it with some consistency so that we can then do it for the performance or video shoot, as the case may be.
Yeah. And, this concept of baby stepping your way to perfection, or baby stepping your way to what you're creating. It's the same in film. So much of the pre-production for any film is about knowing that on the day when you're shooting it, you have a clear plan and you have a clear indication that the plan will work. So you've already tried some stuff out. So for the beret, we sort of leaned into some of the cinematic language. and made a pretty complicated sequence that we really needed to have a clear plan for. So instead of doing an elaborate storyboard, we had a list of shots, and we went ahead and filmed some test footage. We did a pre-visualization, or a pre-viz, as they say in the biz, using some art supplies. And the sort of narrative idea behind this sequence was, if we were going to start with them in their separate apartments and end with them together under that glorious tree on Mount Pollux, this middle movement of the beret would be these two people coming together for the first time, meeting in a field, out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, to borrow from a great quote from Rumi. So they're going to meet in this field, but we decided what would be sort of fun is to show the excitement of being in a field, show the excitement of meeting each other for the first time after so long, and running full tilt. And that sort of generated ideas of like, okay, so they're meeting, how do we still raise the stakes a little bit more? And so we decided to borrow a little bit from the proud cinematic history of spaghetti westerns. So we're going to go ahead and show our pre-viz that sets up this kind of spaghetti western style meeting of two important characters. So here we go. I'll sort of talk you through this as we go along. So it starts out, we see the shadow of Zadie enter, and then we pan up to see her face gazing off in the distance. The shadow of Maya. There she is. They look out across the field at each other. Is it really you? We focus. The music starts, and they're walking. They pick up speed.
And our faces are giving nothing away.
And we're watching their feet as they run full tilt. Where are they? Where are they? They still haven't met face to face.
And slowing to a stop.
And now finally,
and then turn.
Go. And now they run, but before they arrive, we cut away, and now they're running past.
Zoom it, let it go, see if it'll go by itself.
And we start to see their shadows again. Start to see all these different locations. Which then leads us to the shadow sequence that we just showed you a bit of the process of finding. So I think we're probably ready to show the full thing as it was finally done. And then we'll talk a little bit about the editing process after we see it. So here is the Beret. Ta-da. And as you can see, we leaned away from any sort of adversarial relationship and leaned into the friendlier kind of meeting. And so it actually became more of a canon, which is totally in keeping with the MO of Bach himself. So yeah, it turned into, a sequence. Each of them was following a certain path to this meeting place. And yeah, so this was a really elaborately constructed and then elaborately edited together thing. And here is Greg, our fearless editor, who was charged with the task of fitting all these pieces together. That was a fun thing.
Yeah, so since this is the Fourth Wall stream, many of you know that I've been doing a ton of video editing work, especially in the last 2 years of the pandemic. This project was an especially great treat to be a part of because I just got to execute a vision. And it was really fun finding ways to take my knowledge as a musician, knowledge of Bach, knowledge of choreography, and apply it to this wonderful work designed, created, presented by other people. So it was really fun experimenting with what looks best? What are these little moments? How much can we zhuzh that transition to make sure it really is compelling physically, visually? Is the bowing look right? The fingerings look right? We'll get more into the weeds on that for the official premiere of this piece, which is going to be October 12th. Keep your eyes open for that. That's just been announced. Zara will talk a little bit more about that, I'm sure, in just a moment, because this actually brings us to the end of our Saturday Showtime for the month. It's been great talking with Zara, Maya, and Neil about process, hearing the way that the creative process can expand from our world of music and then adding dance into this cinematic universe and drawing from even more resources and more language that we can use to bring audiences into the experience of full-on performing arts. So I'll pitch it over to Zara, Neil, Maya to wrap us up and send us out. We're going to go out on a little blooper reel, but thank you all so much for joining us. If you want to support Zara's work in this project, we've put her Venmo link in the chats in both. It is at Zara-Lawler. You can find that. You can support her work. Of course, as the Fourth Wall, you can support our work on Patreon and through various number of channels. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, so if you want to support us in a large way, it will be tax deductible. Same thing with Zara down the road, is fiscally sponsored, and there'll be big announcements of that, of how you can support this ongoing hybrid arts work exploding into the world and bringing new perspectives on the arts. Zara, you want to wrap us up?
I do. Thanks again, Greg and Neil and the Fourth Wall as a whole for having us be part of this. It's so fun for us to get to have a conversation not just about the what but the how of this project. Like Greg mentioned, the big public premiere will be October 12th. We will show the whole piece, Symmetrical Lives. We will show more behind the scenes things. There will be some interactive fun stuff and an opportunity to chat much more informally and just enjoy the whole project altogether. October 12th, please keep an eye out for details. And like Greg mentioned, we also do have a blooper reel to share. It's not even a blooper reel, it's just a single rehearsal shot of another moment from the bourrée when we were working on it before it sounded as good as the final product. I'll just say that.
Action.
X, V, lunge beyond, and then twirl away.
I don't know why we didn't just use that one. That was... What's all this other effort?
It just grabs me. I know, it's so satisfying. Why do it a second time? Yeah. But I feel like that's a great cue for everyone to just twirl away.
Twirl away.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Twirling, twirling. Be safe. Take care of yourself, as we say every month. We miss seeing you. We're getting back out into the world, all of us performing in person. We hope to see you live when it is safe and clear to do so. So take care of yourselves. Take care of those around you in your bigger community. And we will see you next time on Saturday Showtime, if not before.